Okay, well, why don't we get started? Because we have about 50 minutes. Welcome, everyone, to today's session as part of Housing Month. My name is Gary Pligandla. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Edmonton Region. So I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement, and this is my personal land acknowledgement that I've been evolving over the last few years, I guess. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here in this place we call the City of Edmonton in English, and Amiskwachi, Waskagan, and Cree on the territory of the Treaty 6 First Nations. Treaty 6 encompasses the traditional territories of numerous First Nation peoples, including Cree, Dene, Nakota, Saulteaux, and Anishinaabe Ojibwe. It's the home to thousands of Inuit people and the homeland of the Métis Nation. It is a welcoming place for all people who come from all around the world and call us our home, and all of us are parties of this peace and friendship treaty. Some of us descend from people who arrived here by choice and have therefore benefited from the displacement, genocide, and forced assimilation of Indigenous peoples. On the other hand, some were pushed here seeking safety from oppression and war, and some were forced here through slavery. Many who came here were forced or coerced to dedicate their labor to the construction of what we now call Canada. By recognizing that this land is colonized Indigenous territory that has been crafted through slave and indentured labor, it is our responsibility to connect the dots between the current state and our collective histories for the purpose of naming truth, enabling reconciliation, and resolving inequity. Edmonton Housing Month is an annual campaign that aims to raise awareness of the need for and importance of safe, quality, affordable housing in the capital region. Our friends over at Homeward Trust do an incredible job coordinating Housing Month, and the Canadian Mental Health Association, Edmonton Region, is proud to be a part of this group of housing providers and government agencies. Throughout the month, our sector will be presenting webinars on different topics related to housing. This is the first one. You can see the full list at housingmonth.ca, including next week's session with Métis Capital Housing. Driven by our new strategic plan, that's CMHA's Edmonton Region's new strategic plan, and our vision of stronger communities, smarter systems, and simpler journeys, CMHA Edmonton Region aims to ensure that all people experience good mental health and well-being. We do this by mobilizing people in communities, transforming systems in the sector, and optimizing our own operations and service delivery. Ultimately, our work is about building a new, better normal and simplifying journeys for people and families. We are pleased to host this session and share the lived experiences of people living with mental health challenges and a frontline perspective focused on housing and mental health. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Gail Haynes, our Director of Housing and Peer Support and much more, who will serve as our moderator today. Mute button.
All right, we'll try that again. Sorry, everyone. I'm pleased to host today's session on housing and mental health, a lived experience perspective. As Gary mentioned, my name is Gail Haynes, and I'm the Director of Housing Services and Peer Support here at CMHA. And I've been part of CMHA for about 15 years. Our housing model is of a supportive landlord. We don't offer any on-site supports. We connect our tenants to supports and services in the community that support their well-being. CMHA Edmonton currently owns or operates 146 units across 7 buildings here in Edmonton. Our housing is permanent and long-term, with more than half of our tenants who have been living with us for more than 10 years. Our housing program is intended for individuals with mental health concerns and a need for affordable housing. We don't just provide a place to live, we help build a community. I'd like to briefly introduce our panelists. They will introduce themselves more formally and share a bit about themselves in a moment. First, we have 2 tenants, Carly Murphy and Richard Boulay. Also joining us is Courtney Robertson, Advocacy and Wayfinding Coordinator at CMHA Edmonton, who works directly with our tenants. Each panelist is going to take a few minutes now to share a bit about themselves, and in Courtney's case, her work with tenants and people in need. First up, Carly, please go ahead.
Hey y'all, my name's Carly. I'm a young adult living in CMHA housing. I moved to Edmonton in 2019 after studying on the East Coast and kind of being like raised most of my life in Alberta anyway. I am a crafter. I read a lot. I don't really know. I'm happy to be here with you today.
So Carly, can you share how you came to our housing program and what your experience has been so far?
Yep. So I met with my social worker in the spring to go over my AISH application. And I also told her that I was applying for other low-income housing, but the wait list is apparently years long. So she actually recommended CMHA housing to me. And within like 2 months of applying, I did get a call and I looked at a place and I moved in the early summer, late spring. Yeah, and it's been really a great time here. I love it. It's so nice.
Thanks, Carly. Do you have anything else to add to your story right now?
Not really. No, I don't really know. I'm not great at introductions, but I will answer questions later if people have them for me. Yes.
Thanks, Carly. Now we'll hear from Richard.
Hello, everyone. And I've been in CMHA housing for 24 years, and I'm 60 years old. I have a page I wrote out, and it takes about 3 minutes. That's what I was told I could work up to. Okay. I have had 2 psychiatric hospitalizations at ages 30 and 33. I was moving from city to city at this time. I was self-medicating with alcohol and marijuana and trying to come out as gay. I was told I had schizophrenia at 33. My basic recovery started in transitional mental health group homes. At 36, I was told I could have my own apartment with CMHA Edmonton. I knew nothing about CMHA other than it was my new landlord. It was not long before I discovered my landlord knew what it was like to live with a mental illness. My recovery journey broadened over time and received support from CMHA in different departments, including housing. After I moved into my new home, I started to volunteer here and there in Edmonton. At 40, I returned to university, and by 45, I had my master's in fine arts. Shortly after that, I started to volunteer at CMHA. My life today revolves around CMHA and my art practice. I have volunteer and paid work at CMHA. I also attend programming. I met Marilyn Olson, who is another person with lived experience with mental illness, through the CMHA peer support program. Marilyn and I collaborate on making art-focused textiles together. We have opportunities to exhibit. Marilyn is new to making art, but has plenty of transferable skills to think creatively from her own life's journey. Yes, I do know a number of people in the university-based art community in Edmonton and beyond. I do value the university system. Earning my MFA was a milestone, but I prefer to stay close to people with lived experience because I am more easily understood in a way that is hard to put into words. I know empathy and vulnerability are clues. CMHA offers a non-judgmental and non-competitive support on which one can focus on goals at a manageable speed, be it art or something else like learning how to socialize. This support applies equally in housing. Everyone gets a fair deal. Schizophrenia scared me at a very basic level back in the day. A certain feeling of fear has never left me. Schizophrenia is for life, but I feel safe where I am living and where I go to work. The CMHA housing program was a real springboard for me to explore the rest of what the agency had to offer, as well as learning what other mental agencies were up to. All of the goals one meets in step-by-step recovery are treasures for sure. Stable, safe, and supportive housing is a cornerstone of living one can truly value. This supportive housing offers a fighting chance in life and a chance to put down roots. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard, for sharing your story with us. Courtney, if you can maybe share some of your experiences working with our tenants.
Thanks, Gail. My name is Courtney Robertson, and I've been with the Advocacy and Wayfinding program at CMHA Edmonton for the last 3 years. The Advocacy and Wayfinding program works with people with lived experience of mental illness and their families and other caregivers find the services and supports they need. Often people reach out to us to help connect with financial supports, housing, employment, mental health resources, and caregiver support. Our program goes beyond just providing a referral. By providing individuals we work with knowledge and support, we empower clients to advocate for themselves and help navigate around the barriers and challenges that arise within complex systems. I've got to know quite a few of our housing tenants over the years by providing similar services. Tenants may reach out for help completing paperwork or applications, finding new supports after a program may have ended, or just bouncing an idea of how to solve a problem with another tenant. We also provide tenants with relevant information by providing newsletters and helping to connect with resources in a simple way, such as working with the Christmas Bureau to complete applications for our eligible tenants. I see directly how important having safe and stable housing is for well-being and recovery and the impact it can have. Thanks for inviting me to discuss such an important topic.
Thank you all. Thank you, Courtney and Richard and Carly, for sharing your experience here at CMHA, and Courtney, the work that you do with our tenants. So just a couple of questions, and anyone can answer. Carly or Richard, what impact has stable, affordable housing had for you?
Go ahead, Carly.
Just a weird game of chicken. I really appreciate having my own space. This is actually my first actual like living space that hasn't had other roommates just to afford rent. So in that way, it has definitely given me like a sense of independence, and also makes me able to adjust my own schedule to fit my needs as like a full-time patient. It gives me a bit of stability, and also shows stability in my life, in that like it's a continual thing that I am like committed to like follow rules and, you know, be a good like tenant and neighbor.
Thanks, Carly. Richard?
Could you ask the question again, please, Gail?
Sure. So what impact has stable, affordable housing had for you?
Oh, it's given me my life back, quite frankly. My mental health journey was really knocked the wind out of my sails, and my worst years were in my early 30s, and at my current age, I've spent almost half my life in recovery, but I'm a lot stronger now than I was before. I still need support, but I have an active life and I'm enjoying life, and I feel content. So, and a lot of that has to do with CMHA and the housing. Yeah.
So Richard, I know you had mentioned when you were introducing yourself, you've been a tenant with CMHA for 24 years, and I know that to be true. Can you maybe share, if you can, what benefits there are with CMHA housing that you might not have had otherwise? I know you said you were connected to supports here. What do those supports look like?
Well, these days I have Marnie McRae to talk to, and I have you to talk to. Whenever there's been trouble in the building, that's unfortunate. Someone is struggling with their mental health usually. We have had incidents where the police were called and with a mental health worker accompanying them. And I remember in one incident, I remember talking to you directly, Gail, on the phone, and you were telling me exactly what to do. And a lot of that, so that was like a crisis situation. So CMHA is great in a crisis, and they're also good for day-to-day just chit chat and getting along with each other's with each tenant, and just kind of having a regular life. You know, that's what I get out of CMHA supports is a regular life.
Thanks, Richard. I see Gary has his hand up.
Yes, I'm being very polite. You know what, I mean, Carly, you said that this was your first sort of apartment of your own. And I mean, Richard has told a bit about the impact over the last almost 24 years, I guess. So if you don't mind me putting on the spot, do you have any dreams, like in terms of, I mean, housing is the foundation for a lot of things, right? Any big things that you want to pursue yourself?
Actually, dreams is like one of my big words that like we don't use in my treatment, but I guess I'm kind of like trying to outfit my home for the holidays, but using like craft things, because I don't have the like I haven't saved up at all to like decorate instead of gifts. So I think that's fun. I did get a cat, and she's really great. It would be way different if I didn't have a cat. I don't know. I just kind of want to make it my own space. I kind of always, even when I was living with my parents, like 15, I would like collect blankets that were still in the packaging. Like when I moved in here, like, and it's been like 12 years since then, and they just dropped off my stuff. And it was really like a big dream of mine to just have my own space that I could customize. And I've always kind of just wanted my own place so that I could welcome people. So it's not really the best time because of the COVID stuff, but you know, I just kind of want to create like a cozy and welcoming space that I can paint and I can knit and I can craft and I can just hang out with my cat and you know, not really have to like cleaning up over after like roommates or just, I don't know, it's just quite lovely actually, even though I thought it was very lonely at the beginning, and then I got my cat Seaweed. So yeah, and it's just been really nice to be able to have things kind of go more on my schedule.
That's awesome. Thanks.
So I just want to flip the page here to Courtney. What are some of the barriers you've experienced when trying to secure and maintain housing with the clients that you've worked with in the community?
Many individuals that I work with are low income, and with waitlists for subsidized and affordable housing programs, it can be challenging to find housing that fits someone's budget. Clients may also face a stigma or misunderstanding with income supports or AISH being their source of income with potential landlords. Compromising for affordability may mean that they live in a location that they don't feel safe, they're farther from their community supports, or by renting a shared space, it may mean that they don't fall under the Residential Tenancies Act, leaving them vulnerable. Additionally, individuals may have difficulty applying for housing programs that would be suitable, not knowing where the resources are or because of barriers completing the required application. Also, just to add on Carly's note about the cats, I love that CMHA does allow animals in our buildings because having that support is definitely huge as well, which can be a barrier in the community.
Thanks, Courtney. If anybody who's listening to the webinar today has any questions, they can put it down in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And we would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about CMHA housing and our program. Gary, maybe while we're waiting for some of the questions to come through, I think you had said in your introduction, you're new to CMHA. You're 10 months into your ED role here with us, somewhere in there. So what are the ways that you see to enhance our current model and provide additional services to the community?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'm always very honest, maybe to a fault. I think being a housing provider is important for CMHA. I just feel like we probably need more than that, than just being a landlord. And so in our strategic plan, which I wrote over the, it was almost like a therapeutic kind of activity for me in this new role, for me to kind of bring together some of my previous thoughts, and then from all the discussions I was having with different partners and staff. I couched housing within our broader role around social determinants and supporting social determinants of health, and in particular employment and housing, but a whole bunch of other ones as well. And so in that context, housing has a very clear role, we have a very clear role in housing. But I mean, from my time at Homeward Trust, like it's evident that there's this, like, in terms of we don't use the word continuum anymore, but that range of housing options. We've got, quite a few providers in that affordable housing space, but we probably need more, both in terms of, actual units that are dedicated to affordable housing, but then also addressing some of the income issues on the other side, on the demand side, so to speak. So that people can just afford regular housing out in the regular market. And then we have, housing, like sort of that kind of in the supported or supportive housing end of the range. We've got, permanent supportive housing and other models like that are are quite intensive, and people need to have fairly intensive needs or complex needs in order to be, for it to be a fit. So there's this huge gap in the middle, though, right? Because there are people who need some kind of support, and in some ways it's just social support, just to not be alone. And to have somebody that they can connect with on a regular basis in a meaningful way. And so, and like since I started here, I've been well before that, actually 15 years-ish, if not longer, I've been a strong ally, advocate. I think champion is a gift word, so no one's given that to me yet, but around peer support and the power of lived experience. And I would love to see people who have the lived experience of mental illness and mental health challenges, but then also recovery, be employed to provide supports, for people in housing, to support the development of independent living skills, to connect people to networks and different groups. And just to kind of be there, to talk to for that kind of thing. So, and this isn't necessarily something that we would do alone. I feel like there are other housing providers, affordable housing providers, and even in the market for that matter, private market for that matter, where, you know, we could be working together on a very natural way of supporting people in community to kind of give them a sense of belonging, you know, and social connection, but then also more of those practical or kind of instrumental skills and needs as well. So I think that's the main focus. How we do that, I think, I mean, if we are, if I am looking at something that engages people with lived experience, then people with lived experience really have to shape it. It shouldn't be someone like me. It should be, so what that looks like, what makes sense, and then ensuring that it's, that we can have it, you know, couched in the principles and really driven by the principles of lived experience and peer support. I think that's the most important thing. So, and there's probably a million other ideas that I have, but that's certainly one.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot. We do have a few questions. A few of them are around the same theme about what is the criteria to get into CMHA housing, if we can refer residents from outside of Edmonton, and what makes a suitable candidate for our housing program. So our housing is intended for individuals with mental health concern and in need of affordable housing. We do have an application process where the applicant completes the application, submits it to CMHA. It is reviewed and placed on our wait list. Our wait list is based on need and not when an individual applies to the program. So it's hard to say where somebody will initially fall on the wait list and how long it could take until they are able to receive a unit within our housing program. As we had mentioned, we are a supportive landlord. So what we require is that applicants are connected to community supports and maintain that connection throughout their tenancy. And the reason for that is, as we have no supports in our building, like a permanent supportive housing model does, what we do then is if there are any issues with the tenant, that could affect their tenancy, our manager of housing services reaches out to the tenant's community supports, and they work together to help the tenant get the support that they need at the time, whatever that may look like for that particular tenant. And ultimately it helps them maintain their tenancy moving forward. We do accept applications from outside of Edmonton. Again, I guess the caveat to that would be whether or not the individual has those supports connected to them. They very well could be outside of, you know, the Metro Edmonton area, but as long as they have a connection to community supports. There was another question. Do you provide transitional supportive housing as well as affordable housing? Our housing program falls into the category of affordable housing and subsidized housing. As I mentioned, we have 146 units in 7 buildings. 4 of the properties CMHA owns, and the other 3 buildings we operate as a management body for the province of Alberta. So with that, we have different rent scales and define affordability differently, I suppose, depending on which property we're referring to. The units that are designated affordable are about 10 to 15% below market value for the area in which they're located, and that there are other subsidized units. So another question is, what's the reason for not having building support? It's just not the model of housing that we provide currently at CMHA. We've always been known as a supportive landlord. And again, our support comes from the tenant having their community support liaise with our manager of housing services. And from time to time, they do liaise with Courtney in her role for advocacy and wayfinding as well. So that's the support that we provide in our programs.
Sorry, Gail, I'm just gonna add on to that. So I mean, what I was talking about earlier really is about the future state that we're working towards. So The supportive landlord model is effective for a lot of people, but just in terms of the need out there, the question of could we do more? Could we be doing more? And how do we, and what's the space that we can fill? Looking at peer-based housing support models or other sort of light support models might actually fill a pretty big gap in community right now. So that's certainly on the horizon one way or another.
So who would be a good candidate for CMHA housing? In our program, we have lots of individuals dealing with substance use and mental health. And so market housing sometimes is not adequate for them. Would they be suitable for CMHA housing? Yes, they would. Again, if they are connected to outside community supports, that is a requirement for our program. So if they're working with a social worker, a mental health therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, again, someone that we can connect with if there's any concerns with the tenants and their mental health and their well-being, they most definitely can be a good candidate for our housing program. Housing programs in the city are voluntary. What happens if a participant is accepted, but they decide to exit their housing program? Just going back to the point that they need to be connected. So while someone is a tenant in our housing program, they do need that connection. We do understand that from time to time, supports change in the community. People move on to new positions, retire, whatever the case may be. We do ask that tenants keep us up to date on who those community supports are. And we keep a list here in the office of who people are connected with. Once they exit our program, it's up to the individual if they want to maintain that connection to that support. The supports that they do have aren't here at CMHA. We don't have mental health therapists or psychiatrists, clinical supports or anything like that. So if they want to exit the program, but still access other programs and services at CMHA, whether it be advocacy or wayfinding, recovery, college, anything like that, they are more welcome to do so. What neighborhoods, areas of the city are your affordable units? Is it centralized or spread across the city? All of our housing units, all 7 of them, are north of the river. We have 2 in central McDougall, 2 in Inglewood, 1 in Queen Mary Park, and 2 in Montrose. So Montrose is just south of the Yellowhead and 66th Street. Are there any other questions? Richard, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on the inquiry of support from CMHA. I have my community supports, but whenever I've been in crisis and I've needed to reach out to someone, quite often my first contact is someone at CMHA, and they help me get to the point where I can contact my supports. So I've never been if I'm in crisis, I've never been left in the cold. So thank you.
Thanks, Richard. We just have one more question. What is your policy on pets? Is more than 1 pet allowed? So we do understand that pets are great emotional support for everyone in the community. So we do allow for pets. We allow for 1 small dog, which is less than 15 pounds, up to 2 cats, birds, fish tanks less than 15 gallons. We don't allow for anything, snakes or anything like that, amphibians, or as I like to put it, anything creepy crawly. We do allow for like hamsters, gerbils, things like that. What we do ask from our tenants is they designate an emergency contact for their pet. In the event that they, may need to go to hospital, we do have somebody who can come take care of the pet while they're away. Can a family with children access housing? Yes, we do have availability of some 2-bedroom units for families. We do follow regulations set out by the province of Alberta on how to allocate the units accordingly, but we do currently have families living in our apartments, and I believe we have about 11 children in our housing program right now. Are there any other questions from the participants today? One more. In light of the direction from the province just announced yesterday, how do you deal with property management if the province sells, gives you rundown properties? My concern is the burden for nonprofits when financial obligations are added. Gary, did you want to respond?
You know what, I think generally, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak for Gail, but I think it's nice to see the affordable housing strategy released, for one thing, and then for there to be some clarity on the direction from the province regarding housing. I mean, a lot of what was in the plan was what was, you know, said at, you know, the various consultations, and then also over the years, just what we've been talking about in terms of the ability to partner or to engage in partnerships, to look at mixed models, things like that, and really open the door for innovation when it comes to housing and meeting the affordable housing need. I think, I mean, we're looking forward to like further discussions with the province in terms of what that means, especially around the disposition of existing assets, and then the extent to which, at minimum, we're looking for no net loss of affordable housing stock. I think that's a principle that we share in community with at least from the folks I've talked to in seniors and housing. We certainly share that principle, but I think there's also, I can't remember what number they used in the document, around the number of people in, you know, core housing need, and also who would, like, you know, people who would need affordable housing, how we actually increase our stock, and then increase the opportunities and choice for people who need affordable housing, right? So I also would say that this has to be multifaceted, that we need to look at both increasing the stock of affordable housing, but we also need to address the income side of the equation and make sure that people actually have enough income for them to be able to live in our province. So I know I've gone a little bit further than your question. I think in short, we're excited about the discussions that we can now have with the province in terms of addressing the affordable housing issue.
Thanks, Gary. Are there any other questions from the audience today? Well, I'd like to thank our panel today for sharing their stories and being candid and open. So thank you, Richard, Carly, and Courtney, for sharing your experience. And thank you to everyone today who's attended, for your interest and support in affordable housing, your questions, and for the work you do. Be sure to visit housingmonth.ca to see the full list of lunchtime sessions happening throughout November. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Carly. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Gail. Take care, everyone.